Visionary would be the best way to describe Femvolution. A pioneer in the Chinese consumer finance industry, Femvolution serves more than 108 million users all over China and has built an extensive experience in risk assessment, big data, and AI. However, it seems that these factors are no longer enough for Femvolution to be a visionary in the industry. So, how can Femvolution keep its visionary position in China and the global market, building upon its unique strengths? Good afternoon, gentlemen. We are Team Yonsei. I am Curie, joined by my colleagues Hayam, Sumin, and Yunji. Today, we'll be presenting on how Finvolution can leverage their strengths in big data, AI, and advanced technology systems to better establish themselves in China and in new markets in Southeast Asia. In tackling this issue, we've looked at three key questions. One, what were Finvolution's strengths? Two, could Finvolution adopt the same business model that worked in China in other parts of the world? And three, could Finvolution pivot to adapt to changing regulations in China and elsewhere? Question one will be answered by Hayam, and questions two and three will be addressed in our strategies and implementation presented by Sumin, Yunji, and myself.
A huge and diverse database, AI capabilities, and advanced technology systems are clearly powerful and exclusive strength Finvolution has. Let's first look at the middle part. Under Finvolution's full support, Smart Finance Institution has generated Finvolution's pioneering analytical technology so far. For instance, Magpie Bridge system for optimization of capital allocation between borrowers and funding institutions, Bright Mirror as an anti-fraud system and real-time monitoring platform, and Smart Customer Service, which is provided by AI. Finvolution continues developing AI, blockchain, a finance cloud, and big data from 2018, the institution's foundation, and the R&D investment also increased 17.6% to 87.7 million yuan in the first quarter of 2018, compared with the same period in 2018. Corresponding to the company's passion on technological development, the database and AI technology also broaden Finvolution's financial and business scope. Now, let's shift our focus to the left section. For the huge database, Finvolution has accumulated 10 plus years of experience so that now 4 billion pieces of data have been gathered on 6 million Finvolution users. The diversity of data also certainly distinguishes Finvolution's database with other fintech corporations. Finvolution uses multi-channels so that data could be gathered along many dimensions. This collected data consists of borrowers' telecom data, including location, call logs, and SMS messages. Also, Finvolution is able to acquire access to users' online behavior data, social relationship data, as well as third-party channels and dimensions. Last but not least, on the right side, chatbot system using AI help the company save labor costs and optimize customer services. This use of huge diverse data in AI not only helps the corporation to manage risks, but also is used as a cost efficiency strategy. Advanced technology systems that include all of the strength above, such as Bright Mirror and Magpie Bridge system, contribute to Finvolution expanding its opportunities. Upon this powerful and potent strength, our team saw the possibility of the demographic diversification and market expansion through focusing on new domestic targets and international market expansion. So far, Finvolution mainly targeted young entrepreneurs who are mainly in their 20s to 30s. And now, as 85% of the registered users were in their 20s and 40s, our team believes the number of 85% can be an indicator of success, but also that of potential opportunity. We saw the undiscovered market of 50s to 60s in this market strategy would be elaborated by Sumin on strategy one, Laoban service. Laoban means boss in Chinese. And the small restaurants owners on food delivery apps in China facilitate Finvolution's big data and AI technology. As Finvolution is now looking for international opportunity outside of China, our team will propose an approach that facilitates a more stable entry into Southeast Asia. By first targeting overseas business customers who are in urgent need of innovation in their operations, we first provides B2B services upon entry by leveraging our advanced technology systems. Through an initial B2B focused tactic, we expect to increase the company's footing and further create opportunities to complement B2C services. This solution will be explained by Yunji through Strategy 2, entering Southeast Asia.
Thank you, Hayoung. Now we'll introduce the strategies to integrate the strengths laid out above. The first strategy is a domestic expansion strategy named Laoban Service. It is an AI-based accounting service to restaurant Laobans. Currently, Finvolution's user demographic is heavily saturated by a narrow age group, as 85% of users are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. This sets a limit to the future growth opportunities of Finvolution. Then how can Finvolution expand its user demographic while making use of their strength in big data and AI? We propose Finvolution to make partnerships with two main players in China's food delivery market. Our team targeted the Chinese food delivery market for partnership as it is one of the largest and fast-growing markets in China. You can see in this graph that from 2011 to 2018, the market grew about 41%. We also took into consideration that most Chinese are ordering food on mobile phones, which indicates that this demographic is familiar with mobile finance. 80% of the market is currently dominated by Ele.me and Meituan Waimai. Therefore, we plan to make partnerships with these two companies that have large dominance and potential. We benchmarked a partnership between a Korean fintech company Toast and Korean food delivery platform Baemin. Since the fast growth rate of Chinese food delivery market is very similar to the Korean market, we are confident that this successful benchmark outcome will be expected in our strategy as well. So why would Finvolution and these food delivery apps partner with each other? First of all, Finvolution is looking to expand its user demographics. By receiving financial data from food delivery apps and then processing personalizing AI analysis, Finvolution can target Laobans registered to Ele.me and Meituan Waimai, who are mostly in their 50s and 60s. Now, on the other side of the partnership, food delivery apps are looking for data on their main customer base to improve their service. The main customer base of food delivery services are those in 20s to 40s, which match the user demographic of Finvolution's huge database. Finvolution's database on these users is crucial for the food delivery companies to retain younger customers and follow their consumption patterns. So in short, Finvolution, Ele.me, and Meituan Waimai's partnership is a mutually beneficial cooperative relationship. The logistics of Laoban service will consist of 4 major features. The first is the card revenue and audited revenue check. This is a notification service which shows how much card sales are scheduled to be deposited on the day and sends a notification message on delivery food payment. The second feature is a weekly and monthly revenue analysis. Collected data would be analyzed in the app, and detailed reports would illustrate how much to make up the loss. The third function is a tax account check and transfer. This feature shows the details of tax invoices and provides Laobans a detailed breakdown of items. Tax account check data can be transferred to Laobans through other channels as well. The last feature provides a revenue prediction service. This allows the revenue owners to expect daily sales figures based on weather data and yearly comparison. As for the impact of the Laoban service, we estimate that the users in their 50s and 60s would be 1.68 million. According to Ele.me and Meituan Waimai, 59% of their registered Laobans are aged 50s and 60s, accounting to 1.68 million. The right side of the page shows that the average number of registered restaurant owners in Meituan Waimai and Ele.me accounts to 2.85 million. So we concluded that this service can bring these owners onto the Finvolution platform as new users. All in all, the Laoban service would achieve 3 goals. First, increase the number of users. Second, expand their user demographic. And third, diversify acquisition channels. With this new acquisition method, Laoban service will bring in new demographic for Finvolution.
Now we will move on to proposing the international expansion strategy. Our team identified Finvolution's objective as leveraging the company's strength of advanced technology systems to diversify their user demographic overseas and ultimately growing their goal of inclusive finance. So where is Finvolution currently positioned in Southeast Asia? The company first delivered their business to Indonesia, where they currently own a subsidiary through a joint venture. This was brought under the supervision of the Indonesian government. From here on, Finvolution's task would be to stabilize their positioning in Indonesia while also looking for opportunities to break into other nearby markets. As fintech operations are normally required to comply with regulations, we decided to start from Indonesia, where Finvolution already obtained government approval. Looking at statistics, bank account ownership was nearly half of the total population, whereas internet penetration rate was at 64%, with 72% of the city population being provided more internet access than their rural counterpart. While these numbers may seem questionable for success, the fintech industry in Indonesia is booming at large. There are more than 170 players in the market, and this is supported and cultivated by the Indonesian government's favorable regulations. So how can Finvolution grow their share in this competitive market? We looked at Finvolution's B2B and B2C models, and our team concluded that focusing on B2B firsthand would be a better way to initially scale up and approach overseas operations. Especially in Indonesia, the general consumer's internet penetration and bank account ownership rate remains low. In such a competitive market, these limitations can stagnate Finvolution's growth with just a simple B2C approach. Therefore, our team concluded that Finvolution should grow the business scale through B2B focused tactics first, which will make it easier to complement its B2C services in the future. Now, how then can we implement the B2B model? We identified 3 potential segments that Finvolution can primarily target. So e-commerce platforms will need efficient inventory management and demand analytics. Finvolution can provide AI-based data reports by analyzing sales data and predicting future demands. Payment platforms will demand stable payment processing and avoiding fraudulent payments. Finvolution can implement their anti-fraud solution to block suspicious payments via real-time monitoring. Banking institutions are an important segment to target in this strategy. Banks strive for stable customer management and would want to mitigate risks in providing their services. Staying true to its core, Finvolution can provide a wide array of solutions. For example, their Magic Mirror system can utilize the bank's database to sort out high-risk customers. Magpie Bridge system can quickly match the perfect partners for loans, and the Bright Mirror can prevent fraudulent transactions, while using an automated chatbot can improve customer services. The banks that use Finvolution's B2B solutions are highly likely to become partners for their B2C model, where banking institutions are matched with individual borrowers. This is a safe way to gather market share and recognition, while at the same time securing a stable supply overseas. We expect for our primary objectives to be fulfilled in the short term. By growing scale through a B2B focused model, we will see higher penetration in the Indonesian market. Then the expanded network of financial institution partners can help boost Finvolution's B2C services. In the long term, the Indonesia market will be a stepping stone to enter into other Southeast Asian markets. So we plan to carry out this B2B first, B2C second approach into the future. So here we compared promising countries to assess priorities for entry after Indonesia. We chose these 4 pillars to check sufficiency for pursuing both B2B and B2C services. Our team marked the figures blue if they were equal to or better than the China benchmark. With all blues, Thailand and Malaysia were assessed as first priority for future entry. Then came Singapore, which has a slightly higher unemployment rate. Vietnam and the Philippines came in last because of their relative lag in technology-related standards. So starting from Indonesia, Finvolution can move through the Southeast Asian market with our proposed approach.
Now that Yunji and Sumin have laid out our strategies, what are some risks that Finvolution may face while implementing the strategies? For the Laoban service, there lies the risk of the Laobans not willing to use Finvolution after the partnership ends. To mitigate the low turnover rates, Finvolution can hold special events on its app, such as a raffle draw that provides Laobans with assets like rent fees or ingredient costs that are needed for their restaurants. This can encourage the prolonged use of the app for the Laobans. And for the entering Southeast Asia strategy, there lies the risk of Finvolution not being able to show competitive advantage in the crowded Indonesian market. To mitigate, Finvolution must initially focus on the B2B market, where its advanced technology will set them apart from their competitors. After gaining a foothold, Finvolution will have more success at penetrating the competitive B2C market. And considering these risks, let's take a look at how our strategies are going to be implemented. First, with the Laoban service, by month 6, Finvolution will consolidate the logistics behind their partnership with Ele.me and Meituan Waimai. Upon finalizing, the Laoban service will be launched. By the end of year 4, Finvolution will carry out a thorough evaluation to modify and lengthen their partnership. For the entering Southeast Asia strategy, by month 6, Finvolution will seek out companies in respective sectors and consequently provide B2B services to these segments. By year 3, we expect Finvolution to have successfully penetrated the Indonesian market, so Finvolution will expand to other countries from year 4. On the right, we analyze that Laoban service requires low cost and brings high impact. The costs are low since the strategy leverages the big data and AI technology that Finvolution already has. The impacts are high as the strategy will bring in 2.85 Laobans as new users for Finvolution. As for the entering Southeast Asia strategy, it requires high costs but also brings about high impact. The cost for the strategy is high because building the initial user base in a new market requires more costs. However, the impacts are also high since Finvolution can benchmark their successful Indonesian case to acquire other markets in Southeast Asia after achieving success in Indonesia. So, what have we done for you today? We've pinpointed the unique strengths that make Finvolution the visionary and how Finvolution can leverage these strengths to expand itself in the domestic and international market. In the domestic market, Finvolution now has a limited user demographic, heavily concentrated in their 20s to 40s. However, through leveraging our big data and AI program in the Laoban service by providing analytics required for Laobans to flourish in their restaurants, Finvolution will gain more users of 2.85 new users, a more diverse demographic from users in their 50s to 60s, and have more diverse acquisition channels. As for the international market, Finvolution now faces a low penetration rate due to its focus on the Chinese market. However, through leveraging their advanced technology programs, such as Bright Mirror, the company can increase its establishment in Indonesia and will see new entry opportunities in the Southeast Asian market. Therefore, through our strategies, Finvolution will continue its stride as the visionary in not only the Chinese market, but also in the international market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Yonsei, for your presentation. We will now go to the 15-minute Q&A session. I'm just looking at my colleagues to set a timer. The timer is set, so just fire away and ask your first question.
Yeah, maybe I could go first. I thought your presentation has been very very structured. I appreciate that, and the flow's been quite smooth. You've spent a lot of content in explaining your business case and very good use of statistics, which has just made your case quite convincing. But I feel there's a lack of financial details, right, as to how you plan to implement all of these, as to how you could explain the cost involved, investment returns, cost benefits, and perhaps even like revenue or earnings projections. Maybe could you comment some of that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lee, for your question and for appreciating our presentation. Yes, we do agree that there was a lack of financial analysis in our strategies, which is something that we should supplement. But to just briefly address what you think of the revenues and the cost and benefit analysis, I think for the strategy that I presented, let me go to the slide. For entering the Southeast Asian region, I think that one of the biggest costs would be about regulatory policies, and implementing these government compliance strategies would come as it would come as a costly figure. But we didn't really know how to calculate the costs for implementing regulations and compliance. So that was omitted in this presentation. But on the revenue side, I think the case also mentioned that the B2B models only charge their service partners the system implementation fees. So I think that will be the source of revenue for this specific strategy.
Got it.
May I add on to Yunji's comment?
Yeah, sure, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. For the first strategy, the Laoban service, we are currently using the services that Finvolution is already operating. And for the second strategy as well. So we believe that although there can be some additional cost for R&D and analyzing tools, but then since we are using the already implemented tools, the cost would not be that much significant to influence the total revenue of the firm. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
So Dennis here can agree with Evan. I think I enjoyed your presentation. It was very professional, and then but I do want to ask a bit more on the prioritization of the entering into Southeast Asia. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I recall, the company wanted to focus on Indonesia, but yet I think in one of your priorities it is not there. If I can go back to yeah, so you crossed that out. How do you think you can convince? I mean, given that maybe there is a top-down or strategic direction to enter into Indonesia, because it that lacks. It's one of those countries that don't have a credit system. So can you elaborate a bit more here as to why you think this is the right thing to do?
So hi, Dennis. We met in the networking session, so nice to meet you again.
Yes.
Thank you for your question. I think I should have made this clear, but it seems like the Indonesia has been crossed off, but the priority is actually a slash because Finvolution is already in the Indonesian market. We know that they have already been starting their online P2P, B2C services. So that was why we were saying we should increase the penetration in the Indonesian market through the B2B services so that it could be complementary to the B2C services that they are already implementing in Indonesia.
Okay, so not that you were okay. Understood.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So on top of this question, can I ask, now in your time schedule, your implementation, I can see that for Southeast Asia, I think you will start roll out in the year 4. I guess year 4 is that will be Thailand and also Malaysia, because they are the P1, priority 1. And then the question I have is mainly why we have to wait for 2.5 years before we enter the next country in Southeast Asia.
Thank you for your question. We thought that it would require at least 2.5 years before Finvolution goes into other Southeast Asian countries such as Taiwan and Malaysia, because Finvolution will have to test out how successful their strategies were in the B2B market and the B2C market in Indonesia first. And because fintech industry is such a volatile industry that changes all the time with all these regulations and the changing number of telephone users in respective countries, we thought that it would be a more safe measure to see and analyze how Finvolution has done in Indonesia, and then implement the strengths in that strategy to the changing markets in Southeast Asia.
Okay, now for your rollout to Indonesia, what will be your projection on the finance side? That by the end of year 3, are we expecting a profit? Because I guess on top of the question from Dennis, I cannot see your projection.
Yeah, what would you, I mean, that's a good question from Manfred. What would your KPIs be? What does success look like, or the success you will be measuring in those few years before you expand?
Thank you for your question. Yes, we think that we haven't really clearly communicated to you what success would look like in Indonesia. And as Yonsei has presented in her strategy 2 proposal, we have thought of 3 segments: the banking, e-commerce, and payment platforms. And we believe that the number of B2B customers, companies that we are providing services to, and the revenues or profits that do come off from that, which unfortunately we couldn't calculate, I think that would be the pillars that we would look at to see how successful the Indonesian strategy was.
So if this is a real, I think, business presentation, just permit me to say that what you expect the management will support you. For example, your plan, what we can provide you, just because I think.
So are you asking? Wait, can you please re-ask the question?
Okay, now maybe I'm not that clear. Just my apology. My ask is, if it's a real business case, I think what you expect the management will support you. For example, is that you will come back with some further analysis, or you will come back with the missing information, so that I think to complete your case? Because I think now you have the timeline for the rollout, you have low bound services in China. So what do you expect from us then? Sorry. To implement it, because I think.
So you're asking what we can ask the Finvolution Manager Board to implement our strategies. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think first of all, for the Lao Ban service, since it requires app integration and it needs a new feature in the Finvolution app, we will definitely need to ask for developmental and R&D resources to add this new feature into the Finvolution app. So I think that would be one resource that we would require from the management.
Okay.
As for the entering Southeast Asian markets, I previously mentioned to the other judges that the regulatory compliance is very crucial in entering this new market. So I think maybe we could ask for a headcount in public policy or the legal functions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have 4 more minutes, time for a few more questions.
Maybe I can ask a bit more on the cost. I remember during the presentation, someone mentioned that it's not going to be because these are existing products. It's not going to cost us much to. But are we sure about that? Because if every country has hit their own regulations and one size may not fit all. Have you guys thought about about this point and whether they're really is it truly going to assess or done some analysis that is really going to be minimal cost?
Hi, thank you for your question. So Yunji, if you could move on to the action plan slide, I think that's what the judge was asking the question on. Yeah, so we believe that Laban service wouldn't require high cost because, as we said, we are going to be using the analytical programs that Finvolution already has, and it is true that our program right now might not fit all the data that Olema and Meituan may give us. However, we still thought that it would be relatively low because the data that we are receiving about all these restaurant owners from Meituan Waimai and Olema will all be in the same format that these two companies already organize the data themselves. So as long as we figure out an algorithm that can analyze that fits the Olema and Meituan Waimai data sets, then we still believe that as long as we figure out that algorithm, all the other logistics needed for the program is existent. So we thought that the cost would still be low.
May I add on to Kiri's answer? Actually, I'm working as an intern in Pelmin, which we benchmarked for this Laban service. And what I found out during researching for this service, I get to know that this service is the point of the service is to create the algorithm that makes and analyze the data from the delivery apps, not for the cost. So if we once have the algorithm, the cost is really low. So we thought the cost would be low and impact would be high.
Okay, thank you.
I think time for one very short question.
Maybe if I could ask, obviously your strategy is to go from B2B and then to B2C. What if you have encountered a major obstacle, or yet you found out that your strategy is a little bit I wouldn't say flawed, but at least you've been faced with some major challenge. Is there a backup plan? How would you come about with those challenges? Would you think about delays or reinvent your the whole strategy? How would you come about that?
So thank you for the last question. Yes, we totally acknowledge that risk of the companies not being able to transition from B2B to B2C. So we were trying to strategize this model so that it's not a linear sort of strategy. It doesn't necessarily go from B2B and transition all into B2C, but rather it's more like a supplementary, complementary relationship between these two service models.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of the time. We went a little bit over time already. So thank you, team from Yonsei University. Thank you, judges, for the questions. What we will now do is we'll move the everyone but the judges to the waiting room. The judges will spend a little bit of time deliberating, and then we will invite you back into the room to receive some feedback from the judges. So I would now like to ask, the students and the coach to kindly leave us, and then we'll see you in a few minutes.
Thank you, judges.
Thank you.
Thank you.